Introducing a dairy snack that's great for growing kids. It has all natural ingredients, as well as the goodness of milk and real fruit puree. It's called Nestlé Mio. Nestlé Mio, helping kids develop.
Hello, I'm Dr. Christopher Green. I'm known for my ideas about the interesting behaviours of young children. I'm a specialist paediatrician and I work at the new Royal Alexandra Hospital for Children in Sydney, Australia. Here I work with child development, difficult behaviours, and I specialise in the art of keeping stressed parents sane. I've written 3 childcare books: Babies, Toddler Taming, and Understanding ADHD. These have been quite influential, both here and overseas. In fact, over 1 million are currently on bookshelves in the UK, USA, and in Australia. In Australia in the 80s, and more recently in the UK in the 90s, I've worked actively in the drive to bring modern ideas and modern treatments to general acceptance. The battle is largely won, but up-to-date information is always important, and that's what this video is all about. Thank you. I'm Christopher Green. People call me the Toddler Tamer. I've never tamed a toddler in my life. I tame the big people who look after the toddlers, and that's you, and that's why you're here today. Today, I'm going to look at how little children think and behave. I'm going to tell you about what makes them do the annoying things they do, and how we can stop them doing the annoying things that they do. I'm going to look at all the common questions that parents ever talk to me about with toddlers, and see if we can get some simple suggestions that work in real life. And I'm going to show you that this is not toddler taming. This is not about winning battles. This is about staying close, staying in love with our little children, relating, and really enjoying and seeing the fun of this young age. There is magic at this age. I can remember a 3-year-old I was treating for a sleep problem. She woke every night, and I asked her, "Why do you wake every night?" And she was a very verbal little girl, and she said, "I wake at night because of the thunder." And I said, "But there hasn't been any thunder." She said, "I wake at night because the ships keep going up and down the harbour, blowing their horns." And I said, "But you live in Canberra." And she said, "Anyway, I can't sleep because the horses keep galloping up and down outside my window." And looking at this, and I thought, this is great, let's put it in my next book. And I was writing it all down, and the little monkey looks up at me and says, "Are you getting this down okay?" Now, today's program has been made possible by Nestlé. Nestlé, the makers of Mio, and that's the dairy snack. And they made it possible, but they made it with 2 provisos. 1, it had to be useful to parents out there. And 2, that you had to get your value for money. So I can tell you, you're going to be here a long time today. And those who are watching on video, could I suggest, when you're getting a bit bored, put on the fast forward and go to the bits you want, because we're probably going to be in this for about 2¼ hours to give you the value as Nestlé have asked. So, starting from the top, what is a toddler? A toddler is an interesting little person aged between 1 and 3, an interesting little person whose hallmark is that they have got an amazing amount of power to wind you folk up, but remarkably little sense to go with it. You then move on to the preschooler, who is from 3 to the age of 5, and they have got a lot more sense, and they're doing a lot more thinking, a lot more mixing, and they're different in the way they go, but they are amazingly verbal. And probably one of their hallmarks is seeing how close they can push you to the edge without becoming the victim of child abuse, and then backing off again. And that is the preschooler. So where does it all start? You've got a cuddly little baby, 10 months, who does everything you want. There are no discipline problems at all. And suddenly, at about the age of 10 months, they start chucking their toys out of the cot. You go, woo, and put it back again. Out it goes again. And soon you've got this going, and they think, this is pretty good. I've got Mum able to jump I'm getting her to jump by doing these things. It's a good thing to do. I've got a bit of power over her. And then, say 14 months, you're feeding your baby, and up to then the food went into the mouth. This was great. All of a sudden, or it goes into the mouth and it bubbles out again. And you get all worked up, and they think, this is great. I can make this lady really jump up and down. I have an immense amount of power. And it builds from there to the point that you're all watching the evening news. You really have to see what's going on, but they don't want you to, so they stand in front of the television. Things are going a little bit quiet at home, so they poke the baby. Ooh, don't do that. They have a great way of winding you up. Things are going a little quiet at home, and they utter a word that they never heard on Sesame Street, and they've got you again. So they've got that great amount of power which suddenly comes in around the age of 1, but they don't have the sense to go with it. So most of the troubles you have with young children are that you have an amazingly powerful little being but doesn't think what they're doing. Lack of sense, for instance, little child of the age of 1, they don't really have a lot of sense about knowing what they touch. And of course, parents say, now, I'm teaching him not to touch the video. Now, don't do it. Now, don't do it. They don't know what you're on about. It's like standing in front of your German Shepherd dog and say, now, Fido, I think you should become a vegetarian. And they sort of look at you and wag their tail, but they don't know what you're talking about. There isn't a lot of sense. 15-monthers often climb up onto bench tops because they don't have a lot of sense. They've nearly got a death wish. They don't know what they're on about. 18-monthers, when they don't get their own way, often fling themselves on the ground, beat heads on floor, and it's a pointless thing to do. I mean, inflicting pain on yourself trying to annoy your mother is a very pointless exercise. It's like you going into a bank and saying, hand over all the money or I'll poke myself in the eye with my finger. You know, it's not big sense stuff. And they go to playgroup and they see all the other children and they're really excited. They see them and they don't quite know what to say. So what do? They shove them or bite them or nip them. And again, it's not malicious. They don't get in the morning and think, it's playgroup, let's go in and do a bit of damage to someone. They're just a bit wound up and they haven't got it all worked out yet. So power without sense is really where you're at with these young children. The other thing with this young age is that they've only one point of view, and that point of view is their point of view. They're not really seeing your point of view. So when they want something, there's no point saying, I'll get you a drink when the news is over. It's now. They don't know about waiting for the news. They're not going to wait or hang around. You're going to the shops and they say, wee wee mum. And you say, well, we'll be there in 10 minutes. It's wee wee in this flower pot. There's no waiting around at all. They don't hang around. And they're not big on sharing. I mean, little children, they don't share you very well. They don't share your toys very well. If you pick up another baby, the lady next door's baby, they may resent that because you are their mother. They don't want to share you with anyone at all, and they may protest quite a bit when that is going on. A mother recently told me, I knew I was going to have twins, and whenever the twins were about to arrive, I decided we'd have no trouble with sharing. I'd buy 2 of everything. He said, the thing that I never realized was that when they hit toddlerhood, each twin wanted 2 of everything. So there was no sharing even with that. So that is basically what you've got. This little child who is a lot of power, not much sense, their point of view, things have to happen pretty immediately, and they play beside other children, they don't play with them. That is the toddler. But then, as they get a little older, and they come to preschool, you've got a preschooler, and a preschooler learns to wait a little while, learns a bit of sense, learns the implications of what they do to a minor degree. So it's a much, much different stage than the stage of toddlerhood. Of course, as I said before, they're amazingly verbal. They ask why. They've no interest why. They're just at you. Now, Don't jump on the coffee table. Why? It's a thin veneer of teak over chipboard. Why? It might break. Why? It cost me $69. You know, they're not really into that sort of understanding the logic, but certainly they will ask you many, many questions. The message is, little children under the age of 3 years don't have much sense. They're not malicious. There is not a bad bone in their body. They just don't think. Stuff just seems to happen. Anticipate, divert, steer, accept, savor, see the magic. After the age of 3, you can teach them to take turns. You can let them feel the implications of some of the things they do and put a little bit more pressure on them, but they're still thinking in a pretty immature way. Little children under the age of 5 don't really understand the whys and wherefores of what is going on. Whenever they do something wrong, they know they have done wrong, usually because they feel how you have reacted. So they maybe not know that it's been naughty to annoy the baby, but they know that you are angry with them and they shouldn't have done it because you are angry, but they may not know about the pain they have inflicted. Little children under the age of 5 do not understand the details. Little children under the age of 5 feel. A lot of people bring children to me with things like, a mother recently said, the baby died of SIDS and it's been terrible in our family, but the 3-year-old has taken it so badly. She's really, really upset. Should she have counseling? But the 3-year-old doesn't know about SIDS. The 3-year-old doesn't know about death and the permanence. All the 3-year-old knows is, I used to belong to a happy family where everyone got on very well together. All of a sudden, overnight, everybody's crying. They're crying all the time. There's no fun in this home at all. We really are in a different situation, and I feel that, and I'm reacting to it, and I'm reacting to what I feel in my environment. And the answer to that is, the child doesn't need counseling. The parents need counseling, and when we get our adult act together, the children will bring their act together also. And other things. If grandma died, you may say to the child, you may say, look, grandma had pneumonia, she went to hospital, she died and she's gone to heaven. And somebody asks the child, what happened to grandma? And they say, grandma developed pneumonia, she went to hospital, she died and she went to heaven. They haven't a clue what pneumonia is, they haven't a clue what death is. They probably know hospital is a building, and they certainly don't know what heaven is. So they'll repeat it, but they don't understand it. But they feel that home is not the way it used to be, and they may behave worse, and they may react, they may regress, they may cling. They'll be different. But it's the feeling, it is not the understanding. A marriage breaks. Again, they may be told that dad has left, but they may not know, but they will feel, and what they feel is 50% of the people I love have walked out on me, and they think, I'm darn sure I'm not going to take my eyes off the other 50%. So they come to mum's bed at night. You can't leave them at daycare. They cling like mad. They may regress. A child who was wonderfully toilet trained may be wetting their pants again. So again, they don't understand, but they feel. And that's important because us as adults bring emotional baggage in on the scene, and we need to be aware that our emotional baggage does affect our children. The message here is, young children under the age of 5 don't rationalize, don't have a lot of reason, they feel what is going on. Young children of 1 have 0 sense, not any sense. Children of 18 months have almost no sense. Children of 2 have a little sense, but you need to look pretty closely. Children of 2.5 are starting to develop sense. Children of 3 have a good deal more sense. Most of the problems that affect parents with young children are not realizing that this is not an adult you're dealing with. This is a young child who shoots from the hip, doesn't have a bad bone in their body. Stuff just seems to happen. Moving on from that, why are all your children different? Sort of over here, we've got the children who slept from the moment they were born. Over here, we've got 3-year-olds who still wake every night. Over here, we've got 3-year-olds who are so well behaved that the relatives want to leave them money in their will. Over here, we've got 3-year-olds who are so badly behaved that the relatives make excuses. I don't think I'll be in when you want to come to visit. They don't want you there. Over here, we've got 3-year-olds who are so advanced, they're reading flashcards. Dog, cat. Over here, we've got 3-year-olds who are so hyper, they couldn't focus on a flashcard. And why are you so good? And what's your problem? What have you done wrong? Well, in the old days, we used to blame mothers for everything. Now we realize that each child is an individual, and the way your children turn out depend on 3 things. 1, the God-given temperament that is in the child at birth. 2, parenting. That's why you're here today, to talk about improving parenting, getting our acts together. And the 3rd thing is environment, things in the child's environment that upset the child. Now, temperament. I say God-given temperament. I have to admit that many children are very like their parents. I see these busy, busy children, and the mother says, "How did I ever get a child like this?" And you look out of the corner of your eye and you see dad sitting in a chair going jiggle, jiggle. And you know where the active genes came from. And the dreamy ones, I see these really dreamy kids who are like this, and you say to the mother, "Is he like anyone in the family?" "Yes, he's very like my husband." "Do they get on well together?" "Yes, he waits all day for dad to appear in the evening." "Well, what do they do?" "Oh, they don't do anything. They just sit in the back step looking. The genes are there. So temperament can drop out of the blue on you, but it's often not unlike someone you chose to marry. So just be aware of that. Parenting is what we're talking about today, and the emotional baggage, the things in the environment that are of importance to children are things like unemployment, where it puts a great stress on a family, moving away from an extended family, where you've got your family and you have to move elsewhere, stresses mothers, stresses children. Breakups in relationships, illness, tragedies with something like SIDS or an accident. Those sorts of things are in the environment and they affect children. If you look at a toddler's temperament, it's actually been researched. The statistics show 40% of toddlers are easygoing, so they're not going to cause you too much trouble. 35% are somewhere in the middle. 15% are pretty difficult, and 10% are going to be an all-out challenge. They are not going to be the way you expected when you read the owner's manual when you took delivery. They are difficult. I see some amazing children. I see little ones like a mother told me recently, when I asked her, I said, "When did you first notice there was a problem?" She said, "At birth." I said, "Well, what happened?" She said, "He was born by cesarean section. It was under epidural. When the obstetrician opened the womb, the little fellow was looking out at him. He handed me the baby and he said, 'This one is going to be interesting.'" Another mother I look after who's got twins, who are the most difficult twins. They're ones who have cried all through the first year of life. They've always been irritable. They haven't slept. Now at about 18 months, they're always dissatisfied. When they're up, they want down, and they're down, they want up, and when they're being fed, they don't want fed. Everything's wrong, and they don't sleep well, and they're very irritable. And the mother said, "You know, recently I went to the dentist. I had root canal therapy. It was wonderful having an hour to myself." One of my really bad sleep problems I look after, we've used all Christopher Green techniques and they haven't worked. And she finally told me, "I've resorted to burning lavender in his bedroom at bedtime because I think that soothes him down. And I put the little fellow to bed every night with crystals under each armpit." Another mother told me, she said, "We've only once used a babysitter. We came home in the evening. She was standing in the hall and she said, 'I don't want any money. I just want out of this house.'" So the message is, all children are different. If you've got an angel, give thanks for your good fortune. Don't criticize others, because next time you might not be so lucky. If you've got a difficult one, I give you sympathy, I give you toddler taming, and let's hope that you can keep together while this is going on. But please, Don't go on a guilt trip. Temperaments are all different. Now, we're going to look at behavior. Why do the children do the things they do? What is actually in it for them? Well, I'm going to start with the main thing and the one that trips you up every time, and that is attention. Little children love attention. If you give them good attention, they are very happy, but if you don't give good attention, they're going to go down the grades of attention till finally they hijack you with some antisocial act. Imagine last night, cooking the evening meal, everything was burning, and they wanted to talk, but you were too busy and you ignored them. So they thought, this isn't much fun. They go down one grade. They do a backward flip on the floor, and you don't see it, you're too busy. And they think, this isn't much good. They go down another grade, and they push one of their stuffed animals at you and annoy you this way, but you don't notice it. And then they think, that's not much good. They go down another grade. They see the baby sitting somewhere, and they go, push, but you don't see it. They go down another grade. They utter some word like, bum. You don't hear it. They go down one further grade, and they slam a door. Bang! Look, stop that. Bang, 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 bang. Look, stop it. Why do you do this? You are such a pest. And you see where you went from. You went from up here, which all they wanted was you to talk to them, side stream attention. Or let's look at that stuffed animal. And instead, you went right down there till they harpooned you and pulled you in. And then at that point, you were feeling angry with them. You had damaged your relationship. You go to bed at night and you think, I don't like children. Please, 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 give the good attention up top, side stream attention. Notice, don't get that nasty negative stuff which damages relationships. 60 Minutes from Channel 9 in Australia did a program in 1985 called The Terrible Twos. They advertised the week before for the worst behaved child in Sydney. And some strange parents put their child up, and they were filmed on the show. The footage was as follows. 2.5-year-old romping around the backyard, grandma and mum sitting on a veranda chatting, gassing away like this, gas, 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 gas. Child kept coming up and wanting to talk to them, but they were having a great conversation, coming up, ignoring. Finally, the little boy goes to the edge of the yard, takes a great brush above his head, walks across the yard. Channel 9 slow down the footage and start playing the Jaws music, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da, and he hits the old lady over the head. They then stop and say, Dr. Green, how would you deal with such bad behavior as that? The child was saying, talk to me. I belong in this family. I'm a blood relative. Do you not recognize me? So can't you see it? If you don't give it good, you get it bad. So a friend comes around to visit, and you want to have a long conversation. Say their marriage is breaking down, and you say, well, sit in that chair. Here's a cup of coffee. Tell me about it. Well, I think my husband's going to leave. Oh dear, when's this going to happen? Well, it looks as though it's happening quite soon. Where will the toddler be? 30 seconds into the conference, he'll be between the two of you. Or he'll sit in your knee now. What's your husband? Sorry, what's your husband? You know, they're not into marriage guidance counseling. They want you to give proper attention, or they will hijack it. And I'm sorry, with the little children, certainly under the age of 3, if that is going on, you're going to have to say, oh, and your husband's going off, and isn't that a nice backward flip? And when's he going off? That's a nice stuffed animal. You have to do it that way, or they will hijack you and make it difficult. A mother told me a wonderful story recently. She said her little daughter loved her girlfriend, mother's girlfriend. And she said, whenever she comes around, we always have great chat, and they really get on so well together. They said, recently we were having a great chat, and the little girl came up, and she talked to the girlfriend, and everyone was happy. And a few minutes later, she brought a little cup from a plastic tea set she'd just been given and showed it to the girlfriend. She said, isn't that nice? And went away again. And the cup came back a few minutes later, and the girlfriend went, yum, 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 isn't that nice? Thank you. And away it went again. Came back a few minutes later, cup this time with a little water in, yum, 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 yum. Off it went again. Cup came back with a little water. Suddenly, mum and girlfriend had this terrible thought. How does a young child who cannot reach the taps get water in a cup? And right enough, they follow her out. She's scooping it out of the toilet and bringing it back. So the message is, give good attention, share it, but really watch where the water comes from. The second reason why children do what children do is a basic rule of behavior management, and that is, a behavior which pays off will generally be repeated. So what we need to do is to see the behaviors that are paying off for the child and make sure it's the good ones are paying off, not the bad ones. For instance, if you've got a child who sits on the potty and you read them a story and they think this is great, they're getting the attention, it's paying off, it'll be repeated. You've got a child who eats up the dinner and they shovel it in and you say that's great, and they'll do it again because it is paying off. They bring the groceries out of Grandpa's car and bring them into the house and he says, "You're such a help." And the boy stands up straight and thinks, "This is wonderful, I'll do it again." It's paying off. But equally, you can make the bad ones pay off. Things like, child puts finger up nose, dad goes ballistic, finger goes up again. It's winding up dad, so much attention. Child says a rude word, it's repeated and repeated again because it is paying off. Child wants chocolate biscuit, you say no. Child chucks monumental tantrum, you give them a chocolate biscuit. That is paying off. All I need to do to get a chocolate biscuit is to chuck a wobbly, so it's paying off. So just be aware that we don't want the wrong behaviors to pay off. Look at any behavior and say, is the good or the bad paying off? And then take a step back and make darn sure it is the good that is paying off. The third reason why children do what children do is something I've mentioned before, and that is lack of sense. And I can't overemphasize it because it's something that really confuses so many parents. Again, the 1-year-old has no sense. The 18-monther has very little sense. The 2-year-old has a sniff of it, and so it goes on. Don't try to expect too much of young children. They are not doing things deliberately, they just do them. For instance, a mother told me recently, she said, I was given a box of chocolates. I left it on the coffee table. Do you know what my 2-year-old did? He ate them. Of course he did. He shouldn't have left them there. Another mother told me, he said, he's out to get me. You know, he took his beaker, this is a 2-year-old, he aimed it and he hit me above the eye. Now, even a potential cricketer isn't that accurate in their aim. I mean, the child was fiddling with his beaker and it went up in the air and it was a complete fluke it hit them there. So don't analyze that way. They don't have sense. A mother told me last week, said, my child jumped on the coffee table up and down and broke the glass. I was so angry, I kept them in their room all day to punish them. The child doesn't know the value of glass. If you don't want them on coffee tables, you get them off coffee tables. If glass is likely to break, you don't have glass coffee tables. But they don't understand this, and being locked in a room for a day, they know nothing about values. Say you'd got a beautiful cut glass vase, priceless, and beside it, a glass jam jar. If they broke the jam jar or the vase, they wouldn't see any difference because they don't have the sense. They don't know about money, and they don't know how we feel about things. So just be sensible about these things. The next reason why children do what children do is clinginess. Little babies between birth and about 7 months, you can hand round to anyone. They're quite happy. As long as they're nice people, you hand them round to all the relatives, and that's fine. Somewhere after the age of 6, 7 months, they want mum, extended family, dad, grannies, people like that. They don't want anyone else. So you can't hand them round at that stage. This is the beginning of what's called separation anxiety or clinginess. It starts at 7 months, it hits a peak somewhere between about a year and 18 months, and then it gradually eases till at the age of 3, 4, little children can go to preschool. And it varies greatly from child to child. But it's important to realize that this is happening, and the reason it's important is that many of the behaviors you see are completely normal. They are just due to clinginess. Mothers often tell me things like, I live my life with a 15-monther who is permanently clamped to my left leg. You know, you walk around sort of with them holding on to you. They don't go very far away, some children. They're very clingy. Other mothers have told me things like, look, this is ridiculous. We've got a playroom. It's full of every Fisher-Price toy. But he won't play there by himself. Of course he won't. Little children don't want toys. They want parents to play with them and their toys, and they want to be very close to you. They'll go into the playroom, and every minute they'll come out and check you're there, and then they'll go in and they'll come out. They don't go far away. Most children want to keep an eye on you. They want to be close to you. Leaving children with babysitters may be hard. Leaving children in daycare may be hard. The rule with that is, if they protest when you leave them, and they often then, whenever you pick them up, they protest loudly, and you think that they've cried all day between those times, the secret is, ring up half an hour after you've left them and check that they've settled in. And generally you find they protest at the leave, they're okay in between, and then they punish you whenever you pick them up again. And at least if you know that, you will feel a bit better about it. But clinginess is there. Dad goes off on business for a couple of weeks. Don't be surprised if a 2-3-year-old comes into your bed every night. Because again, one of the people they love is not there, and they're going to hold tight to the other one. So clinginess is never far away. And when things don't go well in a relationship, often they get very clingy because they don't quite know what's going on, but they're going to hold tight just in case they get left out of it. And the last thing I want to mention of why children do what children do, I mentioned it before, is little children don't understand, but they feel. Always be aware of that, because so much of what goes on, really they are picking up on the vibrations they feel in the environment. It's amazing that when I first started being interested in this area, I used to talk about introducing toddlers to new babies and saying that toddlers may get upset when new babies arrive and so on. Many, many toddlers actually start behaving differently when mum is pregnant. So they don't know, you've never told them about it, but they sense something is in the air. They know that something is around. We've got Cocker Spaniel dogs, and when we're going on holiday, we don't sort of line them up and say, we need to inform you we are going on holidays. They know. They start getting all worked up, and they hide behind chairs, and they do things. You know, they don't know what's going on, but they know something's going on. So just be aware of that. I still see parents who tell me things like, our relationship is going badly, but of course the children know nothing about it. They always know about it because they sense, they feel. Little children may not understand, but they do feel. And the way they may feel is they may react to what they feel by behaving badly. So imagine if things are going badly in your life, the child picks up on it and sort of says, I don't know what this couple are up to, but it's worrying me, and they behave badly in response. Then you get angry with the child. Why do you keep annoying me? And then it escalates. And really the child is responding to how you are. And really it isn't right that you should clobber them for that. You should realize that they do not react well to that. And now for the D word, discipline. This is the one you came for. But of course, when I say discipline, you immediately nudge the person beside you and say, here he comes, he's talking about smacking, locking them in their bedrooms, taking the front wheel off their tricycle, you know, all the nasty stuff. But that's not discipline. Discipline is not about punishment. The vast majority of discipline actually is a very positive thing. It's mostly encouraging, rewarding, and molding in the right direction. Now remember, we said a behavior that pays off will generally be repeated. So that is what we want to make sure, that the discipline, that the payoff comes for the right behaviors, and we want to mold the right behaviors in what we do. And the way that we do mold those behaviors is in a subtle way mostly. Most of our discipline is through the tone of our voice. That's good, right, that's good, all that sort of thing. And the way we look at our children, the way that you look at them and sort of transmit love in those eyes and the twinkle in your eye. And also, as you brush past them as they play, you just sweep past and sort of say, love you. So it's all this soft stuff. The tones are really the main way that we encourage the behaviors that we want from our children. whenever they know that they've done good with this subtle stuff, they sort of stand up straight and they see that they are reacting in that way. Now, whenever they haven't done good, we can transmit that in another way with our voice again. We can, in a more firm voice. And again, if you're training a dog and you said, they sort of will stop at that point. They don't know what you're on about, but they know they've done something wrong. And the same with children. With that tone of voice, they know that it is not right. With a flat reaction, so instead of the twinkle, you're actually giving a sort of a bit of a deadpan face, and you're not picking up on what they're about. And also moving away. It sort of shows them that really they have not done something very smart. It's rather like if as I talk here, the audience walk out, I would actually think I'm not doing too well. But as long as you sit there, I'm probably doing quite well. So most discipline is encouraging in this subtle way and switching off when we don't want things to be done. Molding is where it's all at. Now, there's no great secret in this, because you in your adult relationships, it's exactly the same way that you know that you're doing well. I mean, in your relationship, if you're doing good, your partner doesn't give you $1 or a smiley stamp. You know you're doing good because you can sense, you feel what's going on. I mean, for instance, my wife thinks that I have got no dress sense. She thinks I am hopeless at that, to the point that I really don't dare buy any clothes myself. So if I brought a new jacket home and she had a look at it and said, that's interesting, it's a nice color of blue, I've made a major mistake. If on the other hand she's, where did you get that? And the cut at the back, and that you know, I've done very well. The words may seem the same, but we know with the feel, and that is where most of your discipline is coming from. So, let's start with 10 tips for discipline, realizing that most of this is on a subtle plane. The 10 tips. 1, attention is the greatest reward, and most of that attention we give to children is subtle. Cut off the attention when things are not going well, and you don't want things to be repeated, and you want them to know that you are not pleased. But one great trap is, attention is talking, playing, and so on, but if the greatest reward is attention and the greatest punishment is not giving attention, actually in between, shouting at them, squabbling with them, smacking them, is actually more attention than giving no attention at all. So you may think that you're actually punishing a child by getting wound up with them, but in fact you may be giving them more reward than if you cut off altogether. Big trap. So, message. Feuding, skirmishing with children gives them a payoff. Don't do it. If you're going to punish, if you're going to cut off attention, cut it off properly, and that would be more effective. The second point of discipline is, don't look for logic, don't analyze. The parents who say, she's doing it deliberately. They're not doing it deliberately. They're just not thinking too much about what they're going. He deliberately disobeys me. I told him not to do it, and 5 minutes later he's done it again. They've got a very short attention span. And anyway, they really don't quite know what you're on about. I mean, don't climb up at that window, or don't touch the video. I mean, they sort of think about it, but they don't know the value of it. They don't know anything like that. So there's a big chance they will do it again. But it isn't deliberate. It's just that they can't help themselves. So just be aware. Don't look for logic. Don't analyze. Parents get into so much trouble, and then they ground 2-year-olds for long periods of time. They debate about good and evil, and it's an utter waste of time. The third bit of discipline that is really important is divert. It is your greatest weapon. Little children may not know about differential calculus, but gosh, they are very easily diverted. So when a child is about to touch your favorite ornament, you can say, there's a dog in the garden. Oh no, it's gone round the corner. And it works every time. Now, it may be dishonest, it may be whatever else, but it works. Fourth bit of discipline, know the triggers. If I was to ask you, If you want to have a really rotten day, how do you do it? I bet you know. There are things that wind up your children, and things are, for some children, like going to the supermarket. Some children just don't cope with that very well. I mean, parents always tell me, he's the only child in the supermarket who behaves this way. They don't know that actually 20% of the other children never, ever, ever go to the supermarket. They're probably in a dungeon underneath grandma's house. You know, they don't ever get shown up against the child. And so maybe you've got a wrong view of that altogether. So really, we need to know the triggers. Other things like going past those machines, putting money in a machine that goes up and down if you put the money in. Once you've done that, it's sort of like giving the first dose of some drug to a drug addict. It really has them hooked forever. You need to be careful about things like that. Tiredness is a bad trigger for children. When they're tired, they don't do too well. Pretty well all children I see behave much worse when they're with their brothers and sisters, or when other children are visiting than when they're on their own. But there are triggers. Traveling is a trigger that doesn't help a lot of children. Living with in-laws is a trigger that doesn't help a lot of children because there are too many captains in the ship and the Titanic keeps running into many icebergs. So you need to be careful with those things. In our unit where I work, there's a purple car. Now, somebody donated it to the unit. There has never, ever been any toy that there have been more fights over. In our waiting room, there is constant fighting over this blooming purple car. I don't know what's about it. I presume whoever owned it gave it to us, so we would be punished, not them. But there are certain triggers that you just don't need to be involved with. A mother told me recently, she said, there are two things that really send my child off. One is changing nappies, and the other is haircuts. And so we worked out the nappy change, that you would change the nappies, you would have everything prepared, and you wouldn't do it always on the nappy change table, because when you came within 10 paces of it, they acted up. So they never quite knew where the nappy was going to be changed. You'd hide the nappies in behind the end of the settee, and they'd be playing on the settee, and then suddenly away you'd go. And we got over that. And the other one was haircuts. And it was impossible. The hairdresser kept getting kicked, and it didn't work very well. So what we did there instead was that we used the Samson trick, that while he was sleeping, they snip, snip, snip. The mother told me, there's only one problem, Dr. Green. He sleeps on the back of his head, and he's got a very long bit out there. And we haven't worked out how to cope with that. But know where the triggers are. Life is a minefield for many of you. Don't go jumping on them. Steer around them, because it will keep you an awful lot happier. Another thing that is very important is just keeping the show moving. I mean, when we finish an interview in my office, often the parents say, now, pick up the toys, tuck in your shirt, do this, wipe your nose, say goodbye to Dr. Green, shake his hand. And you can see the child getting wound up, and it's all going to blow up very soon. My idea is you get the show moving. Okay, that's it. And you open the door and you release the wild animals. So if you're going to the supermarket, it's a matter of, here's your shoes, off we go. If you're going to do something, you keep it moving. You just don't allow for that business of would you like to, would you not. Would you like to go to the supermarket? Would you like your blue shoes, your brown shoes, or your red shoes? Maybe we won't just go now. You know, it's not going to work. It has to be, woof, keep the show moving. Don't let those active little brains hang around and think how they're going to dig in their heels. Another tip with that actually is, and that is that often we reward a child when he does something. If you've got a stubborn child, the moment they look as though they're about to start doing it, you reward. So you say, would you pick up that toy? And they move their hand a little bit, because often they'll move it to pick up, and then they think, damn this, I'm not going to, and they pull back and dig in their heels. The first movement, you say, that's good. And the chances are you'll make it actually move further. And then when they do it, you reward. There are little tips like this that we see. The next bit of discipline, the fifth point, is communicate clearly and be convincing. This is positive parenting. It isn't a matter of saying, would you like to pick up your toys now? You've never done it in your life, but pick them up anyway. It has to be, John, eye contact, pick up your toys. I'll give you a hand. Here we go. They play you like a poker machine. They try you out because they know that you'll eventually give in and they get a jackpot. But really what you've got to do is to go home, you've got to rig the poker machine so as never again will there be a jackpot, never again will 3 lemons be on the screen. You go home, and as you walk home today, you get the children lined up and you say, I've news for you, the big people are back in charge. The 6th point of discipline is let unimportant stuff pass. So many parents I see nitpick over all sorts of irrelevant stuff, wind themselves up immeasurably, get the children so stirred up that they really don't do anything very well at all. So please don't stir them up needlessly. See the 20% that matters and just ignore the 80% that is irrelevant. Very important. And if you're going to ignore, you just ignore. You have the stern face, you cut off attention, but you don't get involved in that. Have selective deafness, where they say, I love you, Mum. You say, well, I love you dearly. Where they say, I hate you, Mum. Or you say, well, I love you very much, but you don't buy into it. Don't get yourself into this sort of a way. I tell a lot of parents, when you are standing in the lion's cage at the zoo, you don't take a stick and poke them in the backside. When you're standing in the lion's cage in the zoo, you say, nice, Mr. Lion, I'm not really going to stir you up today. I want to get out of here alive. And same with little children. Don't go stirring up the wild animals. It doesn't get you anywhere. It just shortens your life and it makes you go prematurely gray. The 7th point is don't escalate. Very, very tempting when things aren't going very well to sort of stir up and bring in bigger and bigger artillery. It doesn't work very well. The problem is you get locking horns with a little child like this. You think, I'm going to make him, and you have this great fight. 10 minutes after this great fight, the child's forgotten what it was all about. An hour later, you're saying, thank goodness I won that fight. And you haven't won it at all. You have done yourself damage, and you've done the relationship damage. So don't escalate things. When things are not going well, go for space. Go for a bit of distance. And the main way, which is the next point, that we go for distance is we separate the warring parties. We get apart from a child who's really trying to annoy us. So what we do when we're really getting locked into this situation is to go for some space. Now, the ways we get space are probably the most popular one is time out, lifting the child calmly, putting them in their bedroom for a little while, clearing out. And you say, but it doesn't work, Dr. Green, he comes straight out again. Well, he comes straight out again if you're standing at the door saying, come on out, I'm waiting here. If there's an audience there, they will be out very quickly. It doesn't work because he makes a lot of noise. Well, if you're at the far end of the back garden, it doesn't matter how much noise he's making. It doesn't work, he forces the door handle. Well, how do you know? I'm holding it. It doesn't work, he comes out, and 10 minutes later he does something naughty again. Well, you can't expect them to come out and say, dear mother and father, I'm going to be good till the age of 18. You can't expect that. You're trying to get out of this, where bringing in the big guns damages relationships and doesn't get you anywhere. Going for space is a much better way of doing it. Time out in the bedroom works well. One of the most popular techniques used in Sydney by mums is mums locking themselves in their bedrooms. They clear out. If you don't do that, you can put yourself in the backyard and get a bit of space. And if things are getting very difficult, if you just get outside or go round the block with the child, generally things are better. But when you're at this situation, the feeling is, I'm going to go forward and we're going to get into a situation that is going to do neither of us any good. Please go for space. It is a much better way of going. The next point of discipline, I think it's about number 9, is when all has finished and all the heat has got out of the situation, forgive. And this is terribly important, because often I see parents who are saying, he does this deliberately, he's out to get, and there's all this anger goes on, and it kept going day after day. When it's over, forgive. A mother told me recently, whenever he comes out the room, he wants a cuddle. It is wrong to cuddle a child because you reward him for what he's done. Well, if he's learnt his lesson, if he's behaving himself, I don't think there's anything wrong giving him a cuddle at that point in time, because you're starting afresh. We're starting afresh. This is a clean slate. Let's get on from there. Please forgive. There's a story. I was doing talkback radio years ago in Brisbane, and there was this mother of a 6-year-old told me this story that always moved me. She said, we weren't getting on well together. We'd really got offside. Everything he did annoyed me, and we just went far, far apart. And there was one night the dad was away, the other kids had gone to bed, and we were sitting watching the television, and he was at one end of the settee and I was at the other, and he moved up a little bit, and I moved up a little bit. He moved a little bit more, and I moved up. He moved in, he just leant against my shoulder, and I just rubbed his back. She said, it was never the same again after that. Things eased. So please, hold out olive branches. Don't hold grudges. Forgive. Don't get on your high horse with these things. We want to be in love with them at the age of 18. We don't want to be winning these bloody battles. It doesn't get anyone anywhere at all. And the last point of discipline is, please ask yourself when you're in the midst of difficulties, is this my problem or is this their problem? I mean, we have parents who tell me things. When I go and visit my mother and I want to chat to Mum, he keeps interrupting us. Of course he does. You have to share with that. And it is your problem. You are wanting to have your mother's attention and you are not prepared to share. That's your problem. It's not the child's problem. Some mothers get so obsessed with tidiness. You know, he's making a mess. There's jam on the door handles. Well, that's what toddlers are all about. You will not have lack of mess probably till the age of 6 if you're lucky, and it may be 25 if you're unlucky. And that is the way it is. And some parents, it is your problem. You have been born with an almost autistic obsession with tidiness. It isn't the child who's got anything wrong. You have to live with it and make allowances for these things. My child won't sleep in the afternoon. I'm sure it's doing him harm. It's not doing him harm. It's just doing you harm that you don't have that 2 hours to yourself that you've got used to. And for that reason, you need to think, is this the end of sleep? And maybe I just have to live with it and we're not going to fight with it. So those are the sort of things you need to realize. And lastly, can I mention the taboo word, the smack? It is terribly politically incorrect to suggest that any child in Australia will ever be smacked because it's an evil. But it's a reality, and I would believe that probably 95% of all parents will smack their children from time to time. Now, certainly in older children, it is a bad thing to do, and it really has no place, and it generally causes a lot more harm than any good. In toddlers, some people might say it has a small place. First of all, if you've got a really easy child, you don't need smacking because everything else works 10 times better than smacking, and it is much more positive to do the things I've talked about rather than smacking. If you've got a difficult child, you may find that smacking doesn't work. It just escalates anyway, so maybe you're not going to win with that. The problem with smacking a difficult child is that you may smack, it doesn't work, you smack harder, and it becomes dangerous and something that really you shouldn't get involved in. Probably the only places, forgetting about political correctness, where a smack might be given would be if a very young child who does not have the sense to think what they're doing, but does something really dangerous, runs out across a 4-lane highway. I mean, you can debate and say, now, these cars were going at 80 kilometers an hour and you might have got hurt, or you make sure that they are so upset that they are unlikely to do it again. Puts hand down toaster, turns the lever on. That is a little bit difficult. You might have actually hurt your hand. You don't do that. There are things that maybe it is worth your while to be very, very firm so as they don't dare do it again because you want your children to stay alive, and that is important. The other possibility that you might use smacking is where you've tried the appropriate things and they are not working. For instance, you've got into this great fight, you're thinking, I'm not going to escalate it, we'll put him in his room. You put him in his room, he comes straight out again. he's still as bad as he was, you warn him and say, sorry, you're going to have to stay in. He goes in straight out again. At that point, I want you to stay, and you might at that point get him to stay. Some people might say that was one time that smacking might be justified, but it's up to you. I just think that the people who say you never, ever, ever smack are people who don't live in the real world, and all I urge is, please, 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 only on those very rare occasions to preserve life or to focus on a point that you want to be really focused on when everything else has failed. But as a routine thing to be doing, or with difficult children, it is dangerous and damages relationships. I do see strange things. A dad recently told me he won't go to sleep. I said, well, what do you do? Well, I smack him to make him go to sleep. Can you imagine going in and saying, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep? Not really too wise at all. And of course, there are those who smack children who aren't toilet trained. I mean, one of the bits of toilet training is when children are tense, they lock shut all watertight doors. So if you smack them, they go, and there's no way anything is going to happen at all. So there's some very silly things that people do with smacking. So what's the message with discipline? Discipline is positive. It is 95% carrot and 5% stick. Little people don't understand the rationale of what's going on, but they know the difference between good attention and being cut off in attention, and that is really how you're going to mold most of your discipline. Most of this discipline is subtle. Give good attention for the good, cut off for the bad. Make sure that the good behaviors pay off, not the bad. Remember diversion. Diversion is the most valuable technique in this young age group, and use it to your own benefit. Keep the little ones moving. Don't stir up the wild animals. Don't poke the lions with a stick. It isn't a wise way of going. Have a safety valve. Know what you're going to do when you're locked in this situation and you need to get some space to calm down. And lastly, when it's all over, no grudges, forgive, because I want to keep these relationships really intact. Okay, now let's look at some common questions to see how all this fits in real life. Tantrum. Child wants, as I mentioned before, chocolate biscuit. Can't have chocolate biscuit. Starts revving up for a tantrum, just checking the audience. Is there, is the lighting okay? Nothing hard that I'm going to fall on? Everybody watching, am I going to get the major impact from this? Bang, down he goes on the floor. Don't give a chocolate biscuit. It's like at this moment in time, if I chucked a tantrum, you passed the hat round, gave me $100, I'd have another one very, very quickly because the wrong behavior is paying off. You don't want that to happen with your child. So what we do is you divert them as they're about to have their tantrum. There's Dad home early. Oh no, it's another car. And that hasn't worked. They're on the floor. You don't pay attention to it. You ignore it. You walk over them and you walk to another room, and they're going like this. They mostly give up at that point. Some will follow you out where you are and start annoying you, and you're getting more and more annoyed. They're starting kicking you, and at the point whenever you can take no more, you're at this point, you can't take any more. Don't go over the edge. Instead, lift them and put them in their bedroom. And that works well. Divert, ignore, don't let it pay off, and then when you can take no more, put them in their room. If it happens in the supermarket, that's more difficult. In the supermarket, everybody's watching you, and basically what they do there is they grab a bar of chocolate, you say no chocolate, they sort of grizzle for a while, then when there's enough people standing around you to make you look a very inadequate parent, they fling themselves on the floor. And at that point, you either walk away and leave them, and you can hear people saying, women like that shouldn't be allowed to have children. And you say, yes, I agree. I don't know where that mother is. And, or you can sort of hear over the intercom, child abuser in aisle 6. The other things you can do are just to get out as quick as you can. Get to a bit of the supermarket where you can regroup and sort of calm the child down if there's such a thing as a quiet bit of supermarket. You can use techniques like diversion. So when you come past the chocolate aisle, you say, Has that man got one leg? Oh, no, he hasn't. And away you go. Or you use the technique we call smash and grab shopping, which is what you know in your mind what you want. And there's the point that you're going into the supermarket, you go with smoke going out the wheels, and child in the back with his hair sort of blowing in the wind, and get out very, very quickly. The other thing is that some people suggest is having trial runs. So in other words, instead of having to do an hour's supermarket shopping, you just go in and tempt them a little bit. You just go in for a 3-minute whiz round and go out, maybe not even having bought anything at all, just to see how much you're going to get away with. And certainly that has got a place. Other things. The 1-year-old who fiddles with the video recorder. Well, remember what 1-year-olds don't have: sense. Actually, at a recent lecture, I asked, what do 1-year-olds not have? And a dad who hadn't been listening very hard said, teeth. I knew I wasn't doing too well that night. But they don't have sense. So for goodness sake, put the video recorder on a higher shelf. Put the video recorder in the playpen and keep the child out the other side of it. But they don't have a lot of sense. A 2-year-old bites, very common. 2-year-olds bite, 2.5-year-olds occasionally bite. After 2.5, it's not so common. If it's in your own home, the trouble is that your friends may not let their children come because they get all these tooth marks on them. In your own home, it is a lot easier, on the other hand. The trouble with outside is that other parents look at you and expect a certain amount of punishment and retribution, you know. And if you don't sort of act up to their expectations, they think you're an inferior parent. In your own home, you can do what you want. But basically, it is a matter of seeing it before it happens, if possible, making sure that they understand with the tone of your voice and the way you speak that it has not been a good thing. The child who's got bitten maybe gets the toy, gets the cuddle. And if things happen again and you're not getting through, they may be lifted and put in their bedroom for a short bit of time out. In playgroup, it's more difficult. I mean, there are some playgroups which, you know, I hear parents tell me, the biter was there today, you know, sort of Jaws enters playgroup. And again, there's no malice in that. They don't get in the morning and think, let's stand by the door and we'll ambush someone, bite them. It's just that they're a bit excited and an arm goes in front of them. And so what you've got to do again there is to anticipate, to divert. If it happens, to cold shoulder your child, the other one gets the attention. Those sorts of things. There isn't an awful lot else you can do. Sadly, there are some children I deal with who can't go to playgroups because the mothers feel so embarrassed because of these things that happen. And the thing to remember is it doesn't go on forever. It stops at about the age of 2.5, though I read in the paper that there are a number of football players bite in scrums, but I think that that's another problem. 2.5-year-old runs onto the street. You have to be very firm with them. You have to just state, this is not on. They get a really firm rebuke from you, and they may even get a little smack if you believe that is a politically correct thing that you are going to do. Other things are, you need to remember that 2.5-year-olds don't have sense, and if they get injured, it is your fault. So you need to keep holding tight, and if you've got an absconder, I see many absconders. I see absconders of a degree that you can't just put one of these wimpy little bits of telephone cord on their wrist to hold on to them. They've got the full, you know, harness like sort of a horse at the Grand National just getting ready to go. And they're sort of, parents are holding at the top of the street corner with these things. And if it is necessary, it is necessary. Forget what your friends say. We want little children to stay alive. We do not want any child to get injured through you doing what you think you should be doing, which is not right. How do we get children to tidy up their toys? One of the nice things about children under the age of 5 is they generally want to be helpful. It's one of the great things. Enjoy it while you've got it, because at the age of 8, you mightn't be quite so happy with that. They may not be wanting to do what you want, but generally they like doing things with you. So the secret is help them tidy up their toys, and it generally goes very much better. The other thing is to reduce the junk so as you don't have so much stuff around. If you've got 1,000 toys, particularly things that break up into lots of little bits, it's going to take you forever to tidy up. Cull the toys, have fewer toys, maybe put them into 3 boxes put 2 boxes away, stored somewhere, and 2 weeks later, move the one they've got and bring a new one. They think, gosh, it's Christmas, all these new toys again, and then keep them rotating, and they think that Santa is there all the time, when in fact it makes you tidying up even easier. And for my own children, the technique that I found more valuable than any was I went to a hardware shop, I got a plastic garden rake. Every night I came home and I raked the toys off to a corner and I vacuumed underneath them. And it certainly was a very painless way of keeping a room tidy. A little child who keeps raiding the fridge and things get spilt. Again, you can't philosophize about, dear John, you mustn't touch the orange juice, dear John, if you leave the door open, it all melts. It's not really in their repertoire. Instead, you have to make it very clear by immobilizing the fridge. And the ways you can do it are duct tape, as used by air conditioning, that gray stuff that air conditioning people use, and you just put about this length of it over the top bit of the fridge, and every time you get in the fridge, you zip it back and zip it back. And it comes in, I suppose, about 50-meter rolls. And if you cut this a bit long enough, generally by the time you get to the end of the roll, you'll have got it sorted out. Other things are you can put a bit of shock cord, that elastic, sort of round the back of the fridge with a hook. You need to watch it isn't one of those hooks that skims round and hits somebody in the eye. But if it is safe, and they sort of pull on the doors, but they can't quite get the door open, and if they could, they couldn't get their hand in to get anything out. But certainly, immobilizing is the way to go. I can remember years ago, Mother telling me that her little son kept wandering around the house at night, but he couldn't reach any light switches, and he wanted to play with his toys, and what he did was he went down into the kitchen, he opened the fridge, and of course all the lights lit up, and then he would play there, and she would find him every morning lying there sort of in a pool of defrosting vegetables, you know, because the place had defrosted overnight. But there are things you can do. The child who romps around the house in the middle of the night, that's a worry. I mean, I can remember some years ago a mother telling me the amazing story of a little boy who'd got up at 3 a.m., gone to the all-night service station outside, and tried to buy a meat pie before the people had brought him home again. So, I mean, you need to just watch where little children are at night. And I have no worries about this at all. If you've got children who wander around and leave their rooms at night and are liable to get themselves into any mischief or damage downstairs, I just immobilize the door. You just put a little loop of rope on their door handle, on the inner door, through the crack in the door, onto another door handle, and it just allows the door to open this amount. They can see there's light out there, but they can't escape. But you can't afford to let nighttime prowlers damage themselves, because you won't be able to sleep if you're worrying about them. Annoys his baby sister. Well, that's one of the things that happens. I mean, they annoy babies. And it isn't always a deliberate annoyance. Babies are actually quite fascinating. They look at babies, and the baby's eyes are so big, and they put a finger up near the eye. They're just wondering what it is. Now, it isn't that they're going to do any damage. They are pretty fascinated by it all. But immediately, Mum says, don't, you know, you're going to blind the baby. But they're not really into that. There is a great fascination. And if they make their baby sister cry, they don't realize that they've caused pain. They realize there's crying, and they realize that you're angry with them, but they don't have it worked out just exactly what is going on. So really what you've got to do is not take it too seriously, to try and be careful not to overprotect little children, because if you overprotect the sister, and every time the child comes near them, and you say, don't, it becomes bait. And so all they need to do is to come near, no, don't do that, and you've got this great weapon which they can use against you. The other thing is, of course, that if every time they come near their sister, you're on the sister's side against the toddler, they may feel, you know, she loves me less than she does the baby, and of course that doesn't help relationships very much. So try and let most of this go without making too much fuss over it. It's a long time ago since you read in the Australian, you know, toddler seriously damages baby. It isn't really a common occurrence. They are pretty hardy, and really toddlers aren't really out to do anything malicious. They just are inquisitive. Breath holding. Now this is a great one. Little child, something goes wrong. They decide they're going to get you, and they cry, 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 and down they go. You think, God, he's dying, he's having a fit, and start sort of splashing water on them, stirring around. They go unconscious, they come out of it. Everybody's dancing up and down. They think, this is pretty good. I know what I'm going to do when I don't get my own way again. Now, it is very tough for parents. Even though breath holding isn't all that common, but if you've got a breath holder, it is very tough because the only thing you can do is to ignore it. Now, what you do is, when they go down, you watch them out of the corner of your eye, but you don't rise to it. When they're unconscious, they hold their breath to the point that they have to then breathe again. They naturally come out of it. And as soon as you see them coming out of it, you clear out. So as they sort of come out, where's the audience? They've walked out. So it has to be that way. Now, I know it's tough, and it's one of the hardest things I can tell a mother to do, but it's the only way you'll get out of breath holding. Not get in car seat. This is a common one. We see some children who are so difficult in car seats. And of course, all the experts say, you put them in the car seat, and cars don't go unless they're sitting in the seat, and you be completely firm about it. And you know if they're not in the car seat, you're going to get fined large amounts of money. And they don't know about the money loss you're going to sustain because of that. So it is a tough one. There are some children it is very difficult with. A few tips. If you're going on a trip, try to leave enough time to get them in the car seat, because it's often you have to get to pick the other child up from preschool. There's only 3 minutes before 3 o'clock when you have to pick them up, and they know you're in a bit of a rush, and if they kick and don't put their belt on, they know it really winds you up. Give yourself time so as you can sort it out, and if they come out of the car seat, you can then stop and you can then see it through. People are very keen on doing these trial runs, so it's a matter of getting them in the car seat, just driving around the block, and just doing short trial runs in car seat and seeing how you go with that. By rights, if they pop out of their car seat, if they open the buckle, the car should stop. It should be pulled in the side of the road, and you should stop, and the car should never go with a car out of their car seat. Sometimes it is difficult. Rush hour, Harbour Bridge, 8 lanes of traffic, child jumps out of car seat. It's all very easy for the experts. It doesn't always work to plan, but certainly we try to do that. And really, you can warn. It might be one of these that if they come out, you might, if you believe in smacking, give the occasional smack. Many parents have tried to devise a sort of a straitjacket car seat, you know, that they're sort of in there and they can't get it off. But toddlers seem to be an awful lot cleverer than adults. They seem to be able to get out of most of these things. And of course, the worry is that if they're so well fastened in and you have a car accident, you mightn't be able to get them out again. But it's one that I have a lot of trouble with knowing the exact answer to it. These are some of the commonest questions I hear whenever we come to question times. People often ask me, my 2-year-old has no speech, do I worry? Well, the development of speech varies dramatically from child to child. Some children develop their speech at 1 when they're supposed to develop speech. There are some children who are late developers of speech. If you've a child who is late developing speech, check that they hear, because it would be terrible if you missed that they didn't hear. And the way you know a child hears is with things like if you walk into a room when they are not expecting you and you talk quietly, they have to look towards you. It doesn't work when you've got a sort of an 18-monther and you sort of jingle car keys. If you hear the car keys turn round, because they'll be thinking, this idiot's jingling car keys, I'm damned if I'm going to turn round. It has to be that more subtle way. Or whenever they hear the theme tune for the Wiggles playing, do they run from 100 paces away? It's those sorts of things. Whenever you've got a baby who's crying and they're all like this, and you talk to them quietly, nice baby, they may not stop crying, but does the crying change to the rhythm of your speech? And by those ways you can see if a child is hearing. But if in ever any doubt, get the hearing tested formally, because it is a disaster if you miss a hearing defect. If a child who's a late speaker has got normal hearing, is bright, alert, interested in their environment, and the rest of their development and understanding is okay, generally it is nothing very much to worry about. 4-year-old boy with 4-year-old girl found stark naked Is this a problem? Well, this is actually quite interesting. I was doing a television show in America, and just before the show went to air, the husband and wife compères took me aside and said, "We had a big problem, Dr. Green. Yesterday, just before we left for the show, there was a great commotion next door. Our little 4-year-old boy was found stark naked with a 4-year-old girl from the people next door, and there was so much fuss, and the lady next door has taken it very badly, and she thinks this is some major sexual deviancy, and we're in a lot of trouble. What should I do?" And I said, "But it's awfully normal. They're just interested in the differences. There's no sexual anything in it. It's just completely normal. They're fascinated by it, and there's no problem with it. But she's taking it very, very seriously." And I said, "Maybe the lady next door needs to see a psychiatrist." To which the answer was, "She is a psychiatrist." They are fascinated. Don't get too worked up about it. Little children bath together. Little children talk about the other one's private parts. And that's just the way it is. No problem. What is the ideal gap between children? If you were planning your families ideally, how would you do it? I think if you wanted sort of a restful life, you'd probably have about a 20-year gap between them. But in fact, the best gap, if you're wanting children to get on well together, is something between about 1 year and 3 between them, because then they're friends, they're mates, they tend to have the same interests, and they're much closer together in how they get on together. So certainly that is probably the best way if you have a choice of that. But of course, if you have a bigger gap, it is much more restful for mum, because it takes you a while to recharge after the first child. One of the problems with having 2 children close together is that one child is a certain amount of bother. When you've 2, one pushing the other one on, they can get up to 10 times more mischief than any one child could ever invent in their life. So that's a problem. And the other thing is that often when they're apart from each other, they're very upset that they're not with them. And when they're with each other, they annoy each other dramatically. But that's just the way it goes. If you're planning another baby, how do you introduce the toddler to the baby so as you don't have a lot of trouble? Well, generally there isn't trouble. I mean, really, most toddlers are really very interested in having a new baby. Whenever you're pregnant, you talk about the new baby, not sort of in great details about all that's going to go on, just things they can understand, things like many pooey nappies, because toddlers know about that. They know more about that than anyone else in the world. And a new brother or sister, someone to play with, those sorts of things you talk about, but not too much else. When you go to hospital, have it worked out who is going to look after the toddler when you're in hospital, because otherwise they will maybe resent being left with a stranger, and you may feel the repercussions of that when you get back from hospital. In hospital, get the toddler to visit you. So they go and they see you and the new baby, and show them the new baby, and try and have some little presents for them in hospital so as they feel this is pretty good. And do it in that positive way. Let them up on the bed. Nowadays, Florence Nightingale-type nurses really don't exist anymore. Nurses now like little children to climb over beds, and they don't really mind all this sort of closeness going on. They think it is really something we need to encourage. When you go home, make sure, if possible, that dad holds the baby and you've got arms free for toddler, so as they don't feel that they've missed out. And then when you're doing things like feeding and so on, give all that side stream attention. So you're feeding the baby, and you're talking to them, you're letting them be mother's little helper, you're reading them a story, and in that sort of a way, they will feel very much more part of it all. One warning, sometimes there is a thing called the 6-month sting, and that is just the baby arrived, everything was wonderful, they got on so well, then at 6 months, the toddler is behaving very badly with the baby. And the reason for that is in the first 6 months, they lie there, they eat, they feed, they sort of poo in their nappy, they don't do an awful lot at all. After 6 months, they sit up, and they've got these eyes out in stalks, and they're really very interested. And people come into the house and walk past the toddler and say, "Gosh, isn't she lovely?" And they start feeling there is a bit of competition at that point. So you just need to be aware. Sometimes when you think you've got it just right, you may have a hiccup at that point, but it's a small hiccup. Only children, are they disadvantaged? Well, if you actually look at the science in this, only children actually are advantaged in many ways. It seems that generally only children get more in education, more of their parents' time, And they do very nicely there. There is a disadvantage, and the disadvantage is they miss out on playing with peers, and often they have got rather more adult attitudes and can be a little bit boring in sort of adult company, that they're sort of more like little adults than children. And they may find it harder when they go to preschool to actually settle in. But when you add it all up, there isn't any great disaster in only children, and people shouldn't worry about it if that is their chosen or the course that they're going to take. When do you start reading to children? Early. About 15 months, something like that. Showing books, and at books they're going to sort of fiddle with the pages, but then they will be looking at dog, cat, and all this sort of thing. And you just start from there, and you read. They won't understand most of what you're saying, but you start early, and it's a very good habit. And the aim, of course, eventually is that they will read themselves. And I can tell you, with children who find it hard to settle to sleep, good reading is one of the greatest ways of getting kids to sleep. The worst kids I see getting to sleep in their older age groups in school age are the ones who cannot read, because they are ones who can romp around. If they can read a book, they generally go to sleep quite quickly. I know myself, give me a medical textbook and I'm sleeping within 5 minutes. When do we start brushing teeth? Again, early. And what you do with toothbrushing is when they're in the bath, you give them a toothbrush more to chew on than anything else. You're not going to sort of do this sort of business, but just so as they get a feel for a toothbrush in their mouth. And you can do it at that stage. Use toothpaste which is not super blast toothpaste that sort of burns their mouth, and a great sausage of toothpaste this long. A tiny bit of some child-kindly toothpaste is a good way to start. And just start early and see where you go. One of the lucky things with teeth is that they all drop out at the age of 6, so you've got a trial run to get it sorted out. The second ones, you have to make sure they are cared for very well. You should try very hard with the first, but it isn't a complete disaster. You have got some room for error. Comfort objects. What have we got there? Little children love their cuddly bears, their little rugs that they carry around with them. And comfort objects, I think, are one of the really cute things that little children have, and I love them. Some children aren't into comfort objects, but some do love them. And I don't mind if they carry their bears and their rugs to preschool or wherever they go. I don't even mind really up to the whole age of school if they've got these things with them. It gives them some form of security and they enjoy them. And it's interesting, it's often not the object that they like. As they're falling asleep, they maybe take a teddy bear, and there's this bear that's cost all this amount of money, but what they're interested in is the little silk tab on the edge of it, which they rub in their fingers there. And you just think, well, why didn't Grandma just buy a silk tab instead of wasting her money on this thing? Comfort objects have got an interest also that when they're in daycare, because they're what the psychiatrists call transition objects. And it is that whenever you go to daycare, you're not with your mum, but you've got this teddy bear or you've got this rug, and this rug reminds you of your mum. It's like having, when you go to a foreign land, you've got a photograph of your loved one in your wallet that you look at, and it just reminds you of what is going on. So it is a means of mum isn't there, but this reminds me of mum, and I feel secure when I'm with it. So I think they're rather cute and nice things that children should be encouraged to have. Regressing, going backwards when things don't work too well. We see children, when a new baby arrives, who suddenly start behaving like a baby. They suddenly want a bottle. They want to be on mum's breast again. They start talking like a baby, everything sort of baby talk. They maybe start weighing in their nappies again. And mothers say, but why is he doing this? Well, he's just seeing the example of baby and thinking, gosh, I'd really like to go back to that stage again. It's pretty nice. And I think regression, we don't need to worry too much about it. It lasts for a while. I think you could marry this great independent hunk of a man, amazingly independent, and if you sort of started buttering his toast and cutting it into little triangles and putting it in his mouth, I think he'd probably accept that. I mean, I think that if you're prepared to do it, children, and big children that you're married to, will be prepared to accept these sorts of things, and we don't need to worry too much about the little children. The big ones is a bit of a problem. Grandparents. One of the things parents often tell me is, what's the point disciplining? I've got these firm rules, and then they go off to grandma, and grandma spoils the child stupid, and the child doesn't know where the child is at all. Well, The way I view it is, if you've got a grandparent who is really close to your child, you are very privileged and your child is very privileged. When you look at children's development, nothing is more important than speech and understanding. If your child is slow to start speaking, check they can hear and be sure all their other development is on track. If worried, talk to your infant welfare sister. To accelerate speech and development, talk, play, and do things together. This isn't the terrible twos, it's a magic age. Savour it.
Brought to you by Nestlé Mio, in the interest of children's development.
For little kids to grow into big kids, they could use a hand. Nestlé Mio, helping kids develop.